And we're going to continue with the 10th chapter of A Gathering of Gargoyles, which is called Hungerspice. As it does in all journeys, we've come to the part of the story where the hero has succumbed to temptation, just like Odysseus did on Circe's island, when Dorothy and the Tin Woodsman were knocked out, or Dorothy and the lion were knocked out by poppies, or to be saved by the Queen of the Field Mice. So Ariel has started eating Hungerspice, which tastes very good, but she's not getting nourishment. Aaron has helped her out of this predicament, but now Ariel must talk to the suzerain's nephew, who seems to be climbing into her room right now. A pair of hands, then a young man's head and shoulders appeared. The youth pulled himself easily over the balustrade. His skin was mauve, the color Ariel's had been before the desert sun had burned it fair. He wore trousers and toed boots, a turban as his uncle did. Aaron went to help him through the window and into the room. He knelt. His lashes were pale gold with a green cast to them. His voice seemed oddly familiar to her. "Crown Prince Roshka to serve you, lady," Ariel began. "I am Ariel and no lady." But before she had finished, the young man drew breath. He leaned back a little in surprise. "You have green eyes." "So have you," said Ariel. "Do you come from Esterness? Aaron says—" "I have lately come from there." The other paused. "I have never seen anyone else before that had green eyes," he said at last. "Though they say my mother had. She was a lady of Esterness." Ariel frowned. "There is no lady but the lady in Esterness. Her name is Silva, and her eyes are violet." The young man had fallen silent again. Ariel watched him. "Aaron said you would speak to me?" He looked up and seemed to come back from his thoughts. "I know that you are in danger here. My uncle has given you Hungerspice." Ariel turned her face away. The dark girl sat quietly watching them both. "Why has he done this to me?" whispered Ariel. "To keep you," said Roshka, "that you might hunger for his fare alone and not depart." "Why?" Ariel said, but the young man shook his head. "Tell me, have you noticed nothing odd about this villa in all the day-month you have been here?" Ariel frowned a little, thinking. Her head had cleared somewhat, now that the Hungerspice had been washed from her mouth. "Nothing," she murmured, "save—" "Yes, I have seen no women." "There are no women," Roshka said. Ariel looked up. "None in the villa at all?" "None save the two old herbalists, past bearing both a long time past, lady." Ariel raised one hand. She could not follow him. "I am not a lady," she began. "What is my uncle's name?" Ariel stopped short. I do not know," she said, surprised. "He has not said. But why ask me? Do you not know your own uncle's name?" Roshka shook his head. "I do not, nor does anyone in the villa, nor in all of Piers." "He has no name?" said Ariel. "How may a person have no name?" "He had one once," the prince replied. "He was given one, as others are, but it is not his any more, nor his to use, not his to tell. He has sold it. It has been taken." Ariel felt suddenly cold. "What do you mean?" she said. Roshka looked down. "I will try to tell you," he said. "As clearly as I can, my uncle is not the rightful lord of Piers. By rights, he should only be regent. My father was the suzerain, but his brother seized power after his death and my mother's death. My sister and I were only a year old in some—" "Birth siblings," said Ariel. "You have a sister born with you," the crown prince nodded. "She was elder by a few months. Space, heir to my father's lands." "Green eyes," murmured Ariel suddenly. "The Lady Silva told me once how her sister had green eyes. She was lady in the city for a dozen years, while Silva was in Avaric. Later, she went away on a trading voyage and never returned. Her name was Erica." Roshka looked at her. "That was my mother's name. And that my sister, so we called her Errol, which is to say, little Erica." Ariel studied him, wondering If it was the Lady of Esterness he reminded her of, all his movements, even his way of speech, seemed eerily similar to someone she knew. "You are Silva's nephew," she said slowly. "And so are cousin to she almost said, "to my husband," but stopped herself. Any memory of Irilaf was painful to her. "Are you some kith to this Lady of Isterness?" Rushka asked. Ariel shook her head. "Only slight kith." "I must call you cousin, then," the Crown Prince said. Ariel looked away. "But you were telling me of your uncle who has no name?" "Oh, yes," said Rushka. "He had a name used by everyone until my father died. A hunting mishap, they said. But I will tell you what my father's footman told me once. He said a fortnight before my father rode out to hunt, a black bird alighted in the far watchtower. No one knew what manner of bird could be all black, and at first the guards tried to drive it away, but it would not go, and bothered no one, so soon everyone ignored it but my uncle, who gazed at the tower. Then, at a quiet hour, my footman said he caught a glimpse of my uncle going along the wall. A while later the blackbird flew north and west toward Pendar and beyond. My uncle came down from the tower then and was very silent. Not even my father could draw him out. About the middle of the fortnight, the blackbird came again, or another like it, and my uncle went again to send it off. Then my uncle was even more silent and brooding than before. But he would tell no one what had passed between him and the bird. And only half a dozen hours before dawn, my father's servants prepared for the hunt. The ruck came once more to the tower. My uncle seemed to know it was there before he was told, and went up to it without word. This time the bird flew, almost at once, but my uncle did not descend for some time. When he did, looking very spent and drawn, he told my father he was ill and would not be coming with the hunt. It was after that no one could recall his name. They called him Lord, or the suzerain's brother. The young prince paused and glanced about the room. He drew breath. The lamp Aaron had placed between him and Ariel burned high. The dark girl sat in shadow, listening. My father rode off into the hills at daybreak, Rushka said. The hunting was very good. Nightwalker, my father's mount, ran far ahead of the other steeds. But something, bursting from the brush, startled him and made him shy. My father was thrown and killed. No one saw what had flown in Nightwalker's face, only heard it beating away through the trees. My uncle made himself suzerain then, and black birds have come to the tower since. My uncle goes to treat with them. Each time he returns looking worn and spent, for which the herbalists give him draughts. A ruck came only a few hours before he rode out and found you, though none have come yet since. Ariel looked up. She felt cold as dust. The lamp flame could not give her warmth. I do not like the sound of those birds, she said, or the quarter toward which they fly. Has your uncle ever spoken of the witch of the mere, a Lorelei? Witch? Said Rushka. No witch that I know of, though I have heard servants say that after a bird comes and goes he cannot sleep, only dozes, muttering of a white lady in his dreams. Ariel flinched and turned away. She started to speak, and then stopped herself. In how many others' dreams did the Lorelei speak? What would become of the world if she recaptured the lost lawns of Westerness before Ariel could find them? She closed her eyes and could have groaned. What am I doing here, she thought. I might have been in Orm by now. She opened her eyes and glanced back at Rushka. But what has become of your sister, she said. You said she was the elder. Should it not be she, then, who is crown princess? The young man nodded. I was coming to that. When my uncle seized the throne, he said that if Lady Erica would marry him, he would forego children of his own and make her children his only heirs. But my father's footman had shown her a great black feather he had found at the spot where my father died, and she refused. He set her in a tower then, that tower where he had met the bird, and said he would never let her out, but she would wed him. He fed her Hungerspice to make her forget her former love, and long for her captor alone, and she ate, pretending to suspect nothing, until at last she had made herself thin enough to pass through the narrow window of the room. Her maid had brought her bits of silk to fashion a rope, but the stone sill wore through the cord before she reached the ground. She fell, not far, But because she had made herself so thin and frail, she did not live. Rushka eyed the lamp burning between himself and Ariel. His lips had grown thin. My mother's maid says they searched the tower, but could not find the Princess Royal. I had already been taken away from my mother, but her maid claims my uncle was unable to get the little girl from my mother's arms without violence, and so left her, meaning to return and take her while Erica slept. My mother's maid swears she saw a great white bird alight at her lady's window just before she fell and carry away the child, but I think she must have been mad with grief and that my uncle murdered the crown princess. Ariel stirred upon the couch. Her shoulders were stiff from sitting so long. What has any of this to do with me? She asked. And how, if your uncle would be lord and peers, has he let you live? Rushka smiled a little thinly. I am in no danger yet. My uncle has no wife. Wife? Said Ariel. To bring him an heir, the crown prince said. I am his only heir until then. All the women of this villa fled long ago. The daughters of the noble families hide underground. The peasant women, too. They live as the underfolk once did, before the underfolk went away. No one tends the lands any more. It will not bear. The torch has grown dark. The light-bearers have no beacon to follow inland. Light-bearers, said Ariel. She had lost his thread. The young man still knelt now, staring off. His voice had fallen to a murmur. He glanced at Ariel. The pearl-makers, he said. They bring the blue salt from the sea. They once made pearls so lush it was called the jewel of the West. Now, everywhere save the suzerain's own private gardens and hunting wood has grown barren. Because the suzerain has no wife, no woman will have him, a nameless man. My uncle sends his huntsmen out daily in search for them. In all the years he has been hunting, he has captured 5 women, but all have found ways either to escape him or die. He has another means to hunt them by night. Another means, murmured Ariel. A winged serf, Rushka replied, a gift from the mistress of his dreams. They say its wings are darker than dark. But, Ariel said, he was hunting the grey neat by night when he found us. She glanced at Aaron. The dark girl watched. Ah, Rushka nodded. I should have said he has been hunting the grey neat these last day months, and no other, for the white lady serf has been hunting it too. She wants it, the white witch? Said Ariel. Why? Who knows? He does not, but he values it. That much is sure. Perhaps, if he can capture it before she does, he might use it to buy back his name. Ariel said nothing. She did not think, felt herself growing silent as Aaron, as a shadow. None of what the prince had said made sense to her but this. The suzerain had been hunting her gargoyles all this day month, and she had known it, and somehow it had meant nothing to her. Hungerspice, she shivered hard. There was a prophecy, the young man was saying. The last woman his huntsman took, 4 day months gone, shouted at him just before she killed herself with a bit of bone. She cried. It was written on the rocks, carved below ages past by the underfolk, that the torch would blaze again, and Persilon return, and the rightful heir come once more in the land. Ariel started. Persilon? The great stag, said Rushka, warden of peers. The seraph bore him away when it came. Ariel felt heat coming back into her blood. I am looking for Persilon, she said. I must find him. Rushka hardly seemed to be listening. I will come of age in a year, he said, and my uncle fears to be overturned. The high families want no more of him. They know there is some curse on him. Only by getting a wife and heir can he prove them wrong. But what am I in all this? Ariel demanded. Her head fairly ached from so much listening. The green-eyed boy knelt, looking at her. He means to wed you, Ariel. And that's the end of chapter 10.